Hello dear students, good morning to all of you. As we were discussing about financial planning, dear students, in this term we have discussed about the term of the financial planning and its importance and objective. Now today we will start the discussion about capital structure. Dear students, capital structure is very much important term for each and every financial planning, in which we decide the ratio of the owner fund and borrowed fund. It means on the basis of ownership and funds are created from two sources, owner fund and borrowed fund, where the owner fund is equal to equity share capital plus preference share capital plus reserves and surplus plus retained earning. This is known as equity, or this is known as equity capital, this is known as owner capital simply. Now dear students, the borrowed fund includes loans plus debentures plus public deposits, which is known as debt. Now at the time of determining the capital structure, dear students, it is a kind of mix of long-term and short-term sources of funds. Especially whenever capital structure is going to be formed, basically it is related to the mixing of the long-term sources of funds, that how the business enterprise is going to arrange the long-term sources of funds, either by issuing shares or by borrowing it from the market. It means either the owner equity or owner capital will be there, or the debt capital, or both. Or if it is both, then what will be the ratio of owner equity and debt equity? Now dear students, it refers the proportion of the debt and equity used for financing the operation of the business. So dear students, basically the cost and risk is equal to debt versus equity. If we are talking about the cost is less than debt, the cost of debt is less than the cost of equity, as lender's risk is lower than the owner risk, then we often used to borrow debt equity or debt capital, because here the business is in good position, business can pay the tax easily, business can pay the debt easily. But if the lender's risks are more than, or the lender's risks are equal to the amount of the gain, then it will be risky, or it will be very much difficult to decide the cost of capital from the debt. So dear students, if we are taking the debt, or if we are borrowing the debt from the different source, then we must have to think about the source or cost, especially cost from which which will create a kind of impact on the profitability of the organization. As we know, if we are creating the long-term sources as debt, then it will also be helpful to deduct the tax expenses too, tax burdens too, because after payment of the interest on the debt, the tax liability will be calculated. But if we are creating the fund by issuing shares, then there will not be any impact, or there will not be any deduction on the tax. It will not create any kind of burden on the tax. The tax will be paid full, and thereafter the dividend will be payable. So dear students, if debt cost is less than the owner risk, then it will be beneficial for the business. Now if the debt is more risky for the business, as it adds to the financial risk faced by the business, it means the business is suffering from financial risk, or business has to bear so many financial risk, or business is not getting more and more profit, then in that situation, dear students, there will be a problem of the liquidity in the business, as well as the payment of risk of the payment of the interest will also create a kind of burden on the organization. So in that situation, dear students, while determining the capital structure, both situation must be studied well, either the profitability situation or the risk situation of the business enterprises. If the business is more profitable, then borrowed fund will be helpful, but if the business is not more profitable, then owner equity will be helpful, so that the cost of the borrowing will not affect the profitability of the organization. So dear students, simply we can say that capital structure is a kind of combination of debt and equity that maximize the market value of shares of that company. If capital structure is not well defined, well determined, then it is quite impossible to decide the growth and development of the organization. In the capital structure, we are not going to think about the ratio of the debt or owner equity, as well as we have to also think about the ratio of the fixed capital requirement or working capital requirement too. Because on the basis of fixed capital requirement or working capital requirement, we think about the different sources of the finance too. So dear students, simply we can say that capital structure is the structure which is related to the combination of debt and owner equity, as well as its proper allocation between fixed capital and working capital too. So now dear students, I think you have understood it well. Today we will stop it over here. Tomorrow we will start the discussion that what are the factors which will affect the construction or formation of the capital structure. Till then, thank you.